The following is the procedure for public comment and participation. Individuals wishing to speak on agenda items must complete a sign-up card prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Sign-up and oath cards are available on the table. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions and requests from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issue, and citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak on agenda items. Next, citizens wishing to speak on the consent agenda must submit a sign-up card identifying the items of interest. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes to speak on the entire consent agenda. And finally, all sign-up cards and exhibits being submitted to City Council shall be placed in the box on the table.
The purpose of the City Council meeting is to discuss city business, and proper decorum must be displayed by all in attendance. Public input and participation is encouraged. However, all persons in attendance shall comply with the rules for meeting procedures and shall refrain from any action that disrupts the orderly proceedings of the council meeting or hinders a council from performing its duties. No person shall interfere with the rights of others to speak, hear, see, or attend the proceedings, make threats of violence, disrupt the proceedings with shouting, fail to confine remarks to the agenda item under consideration, nor continue to speak after the allotted speaking time has expired, as these actions shall be considered disruptive and disorderly. The mayor shall caution any person who violates these provisions and disrupts the orderly proceedings of the council meetings, and they shall be directed to comply. Any person who fails to comply, as cautioned, shall be ruled out of order, shall forfeit the remainder of their speaking time on the agenda item under consideration, and will be requested to return to their seat. Persons who fail to comply as directed shall be subject to removal from the council chambers by law enforcement or such other actions as may be reasonably necessary to enforce these regulations. Notwithstanding, the mayor may order the immediate removal of any person from the chambers who possesses a threat to property or life safety. Nothing in this section shall be construed to limit or restrict a person's right created by the Constitution, law, ordinance, or regulation.
Regular meeting, March 24th, 2026, now at 7:22. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We're going to have an invocation by Pastor Gerald Smith.
Thank you. Good to be with you tonight. Let's bow our heads together in prayer. God, we give you thanks for this country that allows us to meet together in scenes like this, to share our concerns, redress our grievances. We thank you for those who commit to serve. We pray you would bless them as they serve as stewards of our resources. We pray that you would guide them with wisdom. We thank you for the police department, the fire department, who so wonderfully take care of us and protect us, and we ask your blessings on them. We pray for this city, Lord, that your blessing would be upon it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Member Nelson.
Move to approve the minutes of the City Council meeting on February 24th.
Second.
I have a motion by Member Nelson, second by Vice Mayor Cole. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Sorry. Any opposed? Seeing none. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. City Manager?
Yes, sir. We have no special recognitions or presentations. I do have one housekeeping item. Item number 10A, the first reading of the Live Local ordinance has been withdrawn by staff.
Thank you very much. Anything you want to add about, what item is it? Item 16B, about the mediation request? Just letting everybody know, it's just information that we are being provided to, that the folks that own the property on the Royal Oak development are filed a petition for mediation, which again is their right, but that doesn't mean we're taking any action at this time. So does that cover it?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, City Manager, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Next is 6 boards and commissions. 6A, the Titusville Community Service Award Select Committee, and the mayor will appoint the chairperson and clergy representative for the 2026 Titusville Community Service Award Select Committee with confirmation by City Council.
Thank you very much, City Manager. City Clerk, are there any cards on this item?
Yes, sir, 2 cards. First is Kathleen O'Rourke.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Dr. Kathleen O'Rourke, Titusville resident, and I see that the Titusville Community Service Award Select Committee is on tonight's agenda, with the chairperson and clergy representative to be appointed. This award matters because it formally recognizes citizens who have given their time, effort, and service to this community. It should be handled with fairness, integrity, and respect. It should never be politicized. What happened last year was shameful. Under the existing procedure, all citizen finalists were selected, and each was supposed to receive a signed certificate of appreciation. Certificates were prepared for all finalists and sent to Andrew for his signature. He signed and returned all but one. The certificate for Stell Bailey was not returned. When I asked Mr. Abadi why, he told me I would have to ask Andrew. So I did. I raised the issue publicly at a city council meeting and asked Andrew to explain why one duly selected finalist had been singled out and denied the same recognition given to the others. He refused to answer. He sat there in silence. That silence spoke volumes. It shows contempt for accountability, contempt for the process, and contempt for the citizen who was denied recognition. No one in that position has the right to override an established procedure because of personal bias, political hostility, or plain immaturity. This award is supposed to honor community service. It is not supposed to be a tool for personal grudges or selective treatment. If Andrew cannot carry out this basic responsibility fairly and honorably, then he should not be the one entrusted with it. Amen. For that reason, I respectfully request that the responsibility for this process be assigned to someone who will act ethically, impartially, and with the respect every finalist deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, City Clerk.
Yes, sir, Tony Shipolo.
Shifalo, Tropic Street. The Community Service Award, there's a definite procedure, and it was followed by the committee last year, and then there was 5 awards were selected, 5 certificates were sent to the mayor, and only 4 were awarded. I'm hoping that Ms. Sharon James, who's being appointed chair of this committee tonight, will be highly ethical and perhaps a little obsessive and will follow through to make sure that the awardees actually receive their awards. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other clerks or any cards? All right. Can I have a motion from council? Member Nelson.
I would move to affirm the appointment of Sharon James and Alex Bowman. And knowing Ms. James, I think she will follow through on whatever needs to be done.
Second.
I have a motion by Member Nelson, second by Vice Mayor Cole. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. City Manager, I believe we're at petitions and requests.
Yes, sir.
Non-agenda items.
Sorry, can I ask a point of order, just a question? Since you already discussed 16A, the mediation, will that be brought up again?
Yeah, during her report, but there's no action for us to take on it. So I was just letting the folks here know that there's no action.
I just wanted to confirm.
I think it's 16B.
16B, sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
it is on my report, and I will be speaking on it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, petitions and requests.
My name is Trenton Mansfield, Titusville resident. Members of the City Council, I am here today to ask a simple question. Who is truly auditing the city of Titusville? And are you, as selected leaders, actually seeing the results? We are told that each department undergoes an audit every year, and if that's true, where are those audits? Where are they being presented, and where is the discussion? Because from the public's perspective, it is the peers, those audits are driving directions or accountability. Some of you have said that auditing of the city is your job. If that's the case, then why haven't we heard about these audits before now? Why does it take a crisis to get a conversation going? Why does it take public pressure for transparency to become priority? Over the past 9 years, taxes have been raised 8 times. That's just from my recollection. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. And it raises a serious concern. Is it simply easier to raise taxes on the people or than to roll up your sleeves, dig in the budget, and do with the hard work of finding waste, cutting unnecessary spending? At the same time, residents are watching significant spending decisions, money going towards city manager search that just goes out the window, a records case involving, court case involving election interference, and $150,000 to a police hall of fame that's dissolving. Just named a few. Maybe all of those has a justification, but without transparency, the public is left to question it all. This is why I'm calling for a forensic audit of every department within the city, not a routine audit, a forensic audit, one that follows the money, identifies waste, and ensures accountability at every level. If everything is being done properly, then it will restore public trust, and it will not, and if not, then the people of Titusville deserve to know why. Yes, a forensic audit costs money, but continuing to spend money without clear accountability costs far more. The citizens of Titusville are not asking for perfection. We're asking for transparency, accountability, and leadership willing to take a hard look at itself. So in closing, if audits are being done every year, show them, explain them, prove they matter. And if they are not enough, then authorize a forensic audit and let the truth speak for itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Nelson?
Trevor, I think that every year we do it. Sorry. Say it again.
It's Trenton,
Trenton. I knew I
capital
had
New
it.
Jersey, Trenton.
I had it halfway right. We do an audit each year.
I know.
My question, though, is do we have the audit on the city website?
We do not have the audits on the city website. The internal auditor has a schedule of about 12 different audits that she completes each year, and it's provided to council several weeks ago. But I can have those put on the website.
Might be worth it. And the annual audit that Zach does, is that on the website?
That's required by Florida statute to be
That's
on
on
there, and it is
website.
always on there.
Is this the first time the audit's been presented to the council?
No, it's done every year.
Every year, okay.
It might, I don't know how the rest of council feels, but it might be worth putting the internal audits
Absolutely.
on the website. Okay. And just saying, I know we budgeted $150,000 to look at the Police Hall of Fame. I think we ended up spending
38,000.
38,000. If it had worked out, buying that building, it didn't work out, but if it had worked out, we would have saved millions. So that's why we went ahead.
I said it before, one 501c3 doesn't better than any other 501c3. And the government should stick its nose at a 501c3s because this church down here is not better than this church down here.
Right.
And this 501c3 is not better than this 501c3 over here. I said it before and I'll say it again.
Okay.
Well, that wasn't the debate. We were debating on whether it was a good real
I was
estate
called
move.
back up here, Andrew.
I understand.
I said thank you.
I
and
was just
walked away.
talking about the
I'm-
idea of exploring it as a real estate
Thank you.
potential, but
Thank you.
appreciate it. Petitions and request?
Before I begin, I would like a point of order clarification. You made the point of saying that there was no decision to be made on this last agenda item. Are you by that saying that the citizens will or will not be allowed to speak? Because we just heard the thing on the overhead that said citizens could speak on any agenda item. I listened to it just a minute before. So I want to make it clear that the citizens who are here planning to speak on that item can do so and do not need to do so in petitions and requests.
Yes, you definitely can.
Okay,
I
great.
was just trying to save you from sitting here for the next few hours.
That's all right. We're really good at sitting. Okay, you can let me begin. I want to speak to you about the small area studies and the importance of transparency, public trust, and meaningful citizen participation. These studies of the Royal Oak property were initiated because the city itself, you all did, determined that more information is needed regarding flooding, infrastructure, traffic, and long-term impacts. That makes these studies essential to inform decision-making. They're not a formality, they're not a box to be checked. They are supposed to provide the factual foundation for decisions affecting the property. That is why the structure of this process matters so much. Royal Oak neighbors met with the city and provided input at the outset. We were told we would have an active role in the process. A reasonable person would understand that to mean citizens and affected stakeholders would help to shape the studies, identify the issues to be examined, and understand how the work will be conducted from the beginning. But now the process described is very different. This description, by the way, was not shared proactively with the citizens who were told they would have an active role. It was obtained through a public records request. We are now learning that the work will be done in-house over a period of months, then a report will be published, and then the public will be invited to comment, and only then will the council receive the report and provide direction. This is not active citizen participation in the process. This is public comment after the work is already done. The large number of citizens who attended the recent City Council meeting should make it unmistakably clear that the public cares deeply about this process and expects its voice heard in a meaningful way. We've already shared areas of expertise that should be included in this process, including stormwater, civil engineering, traffic, and related issues. We also requested a workshop so citizens, many students in my life, could provide input on priorities and options before conclusions are formed, not after. At a minimum, adjacent citizens who will be directly and significantly affected by the outcome should be included as active participants in developing the studies themselves. This means helping to identify the questions to be examined, the assumptions to be used, and the questions the studies are meant to answer. At a time when the public is already asking hard questions of you about oversight, accountability, and trust in city processes, this is not the moment for a closed internal process followed by a public presentation after the fact. Titusville cannot afford the appearance of backroom decision-making. These studies must inform decisions, not follow them. They must be structured in a way that is open, credible, and generally participatory from the beginning. If that does not happen, the public will have every reason to question whether the outcome was being shaped before the facts were fully developed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may comment
City
on that.
Manager.
That was, what you referred to was a staff recommendation on how to conduct the small area study, which I did not accept. I told,
Okay, I saw it.
we are actually,
City
as
Manager has
we
the
met,
floor.
and I told you that the stakeholders, public, would have a very active role.
Right.
I've directed community development to go out to get a third-party consultant facilitator to run this, to ensure that there's no perception that staff is acting one way or the other. It's totally impartial, and that you'll have every step of the way, public will be invited through workshops, meetings, et cetera, to work with the consultant and staff to come up with a mutually
I
agreeable
appreciate that,
process.
because all I had to go by was my city records
That was a
request,
recommendation
and
I
that's
did
what
not
I
accept.
saw. Okay,
And
great,
we'll
I
be
didn't
coming
see
back,
that
council,
part.
for the authority to hire that consultant
Okay.
in the near future.
Then thank you very much for clarifying, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Vicki Conklin. This is a follow-up, and it's regarding the small-scale study. And thank you for that clarification, Mr. Abadi. We did have a really good meeting with Mr. Abadi, Earl Johnson and Kathleen and I, and with Brad and Miss Treasurer. But I want to speak about what could happen before any action is taken on the Royal Oak property. So the city initiated this small-scale study, and it seemed the intent of the council that residents would be involved in some way, and we hope that to happen. 540 dwelling units of the Royal Oak neighborhood are contiguous to the Royal Oak Golf Course property. That's a lot of stakeholders, and they do want to have some input here. So Mr. Abadi indicated via email that certainly the residents would be included. We asked him for that workshop like y'all had with the natural resources. It was a good opportunity to brainstorm and think about what could happen. But then I received an email from Mr. Parrish indicating the plan, and that was that it was in-house, and it stated in-house, and that no consultant would be needed. And so that concerned us, because I know you have a consultant for stormwater or something, but that concerned us whenever we saw that, and that was on March 17th in that document. So, and that was by public records request that I did. So we just want to ask if there is a revised plan that's brought forward, it has to be supported by the necessary studies and analysis and with the input. And the review has to be taken seriously. If there's a need for rezoning, it has to go through the full public review process. It means proper review, public hearings, opportunity for citizens to evaluate the full impact of what's being proposed. You can't just move ahead without having studied everything and without a complete application submitted. We have areas of flooding, stormwater, infrastructure capacity, traffic, and long-term impacts on the surrounding community. So the public wants to be involved, and I think that they should be, and I, again, appreciate Mr. Abadi's affirmation of that. That should guide the next decision. So we thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Mr. Earl, did you have something to add?
Well, this is going to be just a little follow-up on what you just heard. I'd like to speak on actually several topics. One of them is the council's responsibility on the Royal Oak area studies. And I guess the simple question is whether these studies are going to be undertaken to genuinely inform future decisions, or if they're going to end up being used to provide support for a direction that is already started or may be shaped through the remediation process, and then subsequently used to justify whatever the remediation comes up with. So, of course, obviously that distinction matters. And the city initiated the Royal Oak Small Area Study because more information was needed regarding flooding, infrastructure, traffic, long-term impacts, et cetera. And the council should make clear now that these results will be taken seriously. And we think that was, in fact, the expectation that council had when they made this recommendation for the small area study, that it would involve the participants, not just the landowner. So otherwise, the public would, obviously would question if this just is something that it's a staff thing that then we get involved with later. So the study basically has value if the decision makers, you guys, are ready to follow the evidence, whatever that turns out to be. And if the findings show limitations, then hopefully those limitations are acknowledged, and maybe further review might be required. If findings determine that, then, and particularly regarding any new proposed concept, then that needs to also be reevaluated, whatever that new concept may be. So we're just hoping that there's no predetermined outcome in this whole process. And also, the second item I'd like to talk about does regard the mediation process that was requested by the developer for the Royal Oak property. That, in my opinion, I know it may not be typical, but that really, I think, requires public participation in that process. And so I'm wondering if the council would utilize an alternative called an alternative dispute resolution process, whereby the public can provide comments and input in this mediation process. Just a question.
Does that conclude your?
Yes.
Before I call on somebody else?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Member Nelson.
Earl, I'm sorry. I don't think the statute addresses that. And it definitely doesn't address a mediation as opposed to a dispute resolution.
Right.
So it calls for mediation. And what it says is if the developer's attorney asks for mediation, we have to give it to him.
No, yeah, I understand that. I understand. It's an obligation to the city, on the city's part, when asked for by a developer. No, I got that.
Yeah.
But what I was wondering, what I was a little concerned about is sort of the way in which this occurs. If the mediation process occurs prior to a small-scale study, that would seem a little,
Backwards?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, I know this is sort of, and so the only thing I could think of is there was something that I discovered called an alternative dispute resolution. I'm going
I don't
to claim
think it's in
ignorance
there.
on whether that's suitable here or not. I don't really know. It just seemed like some way that we might be involved in the process of the mediation. Because otherwise, it's a closed room, backdoor process just between the developer and the staff. And that is worrisome to us, actually.
And the attorneys. My guess is until the small-scale study comes back, the mediation will not go forward.
That's what I
That's
was.
my guess.
Yes, that's what I would like
Yeah.
to see, that the small scale study, easy for me to say.
10 times?
Occurs prior to any of this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
My name is Darcy Abair, Titusville resident. 2 weeks ago at the last council meeting, right at the very end of the council meeting, it was suggested by a member to another member that if they felt like that if there was corruption within the city, that the council needed to be discussing it and doing their investigation into the matter. As a citizen who watches these meetings regularly and occasionally attends them, here are a few things just since the last election that you as a council have been made aware of, and you've done the bare minimum. We have a sitting mayor who fraudulently made signs against his opponent, admitting it on video. Then our police chief made a video about the mayor's opponent, suggesting she was lying. The retiring city manager, a month before he retired, gave Chief Lau a new contract and a raise only a week after a local man was murdered by our police officers. The police chief, who is retired from the city, receives a city pension and is yet employed as a contracted employee. This council has refused to honor the public records request for the 17,000 emails. You all have sat and watched Attorney Farrell try to entrap another council member and refuse to even acknowledge it. Did any of you file ethics complaints with the state or the bar? You've watched a mother beg for transparency on the death of her son. To this day, she has yet to see the unedited videos on her son's death, in spite of paying thousands of dollars for public records requests. The city paid $60,000 for a nationwide search for a new city manager, and you hired the guy who has been here for 20 years. He has years of receiving internal audits of what's been happening, and yet he's done nothing with the information. Maybe we should be questioning our own city manager and where he's been, all the while these internal audits have been sent to him, and why he and his predecessor have done nothing for years. You literally sat here at the last meeting and participated in the assignment of new members of our P&Z board as if it itself wasn't corruption. Clearly, 4 out of the 5 of you were well aware of what the process was going to be like. So, as a citizen of Titusville, I find it really interesting that a council member would suggest to another council member that if you think there's corruption here, that you should be discussing it, as if these things have not happened in front of you. A majority of you even have refused to even acknowledge them. Let me assure you, these are only a highlight of the misdeeds that have happened only in the recent months. This council has plenty of things to discuss. A forensic investigation should be at the top of the list, as the corruption in this city is far-reaching. It's clear that a forensic audit is much needed throughout the entire city. No one should be in fear of retaliation. No one should be in fear of speaking out, including elected officials.
Thank you.
Keith Edwards, Titusville. You guys you got the devil by the toes on this one. You loaded the planning and zoning board, I feel, and you overlooked one very knowledgeable old timer that could probably help save us from flooding every time it rains. You know, I love this city. I love this city with my heart. I've raised my family here for 40 years. We had Royal Oak. This big subdivision's going to go in and turn it into a slum. The neighbors are worried. But you know, Royal Oak Colony, what that means to me was it was a place that I took my daughter and my wife, and we'd have all-you-could-eat crab legs. On Sunday, Saturday, we'd sneak off them, shoot a game of golf. You know, we had Miracle City Mall, where I could go and eat my hot dog and my orange Julius, and I'd send my wife off to the hair salon and then the bookstore, and the kid would go to a Barrel of Fun, and I socialized with my neighbors. Superman, Robin Fisher, come to town. We're gonna make Titus Landing, it's gonna be nice. Problem with Titus Landing, it is nice, it's beautiful, but it's antisocial. You don't see your neighbors sitting around talking and gabbing. You hit it, quit it, and go home. You get what you need. There's not a lot of socializing there. You know, we're changing. We're going to be moving forward. We can't help it. We can't stop it. It's going to happen. But we've got to use our common sense on what we're going to do. Where we're going to put this $8 million treatment plant. Are we going to put it out in the middle of Royal Oak? You know, I got to say something about the Rotary Club. You know, the old Cold Spot or Horseshoe Bar, you know, it was a nice bar with family atmosphere. But then it went down to a bunch of homeless people and druggies that came in. They came in, they cleaned up the place, they dressed it up, they brought in good music. That's what I want to see for the future of Titusville. We can't go backwards, we got to go forwards. And this audit, that shows what we have. We need to say, all right, we need that forensic audit. We need to look of what happened and how it happened so we don't return back there. And we need to take those old timers that might be out of their day, but they've got calluses on their hands. They've lived it. They didn't learn it from a book. And they can help us clean this place up, stop the flooding, and build a better, beautifuler tomorrow. We have Sandpoint Park. I put in all the pavilions out there. We're gonna have a new beach. We closed down Poor Man's Beach. You know, let's do something. Let's get a beach up there. I'll start a parasail company and jet skis. We need to promote our town and show it in the light that it used to be in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Johnson.
In 2019, I spent hours and hours and hours in a workshop here in this room. And I spent a lot of time at home working on it, me and many people, including Michael Myjack. It had to do with sustainability. So a report was prepared on the sustainability of the city of Titusville to include what was in the workshop. Well, they excluded all the information that I gave them. I gave them all the information about the city of Titusville has not been living up to inspection and construction of ditches and canals, keeping them maintained and so forth. And it was all removed. So I was very disappointed. I went to Joe De Niro and complaining about Brad Parrish and Eddie Galindo, who were co-authors of this sustainability report, and they admitted their guilt. They admitted it. So what did they do? They said that they went ahead and added a affidavit that I had regarding this particular issue as an addendum. It's not there anymore. So what we have is overwhelming, exhausting fraud right here by the city of Titusville. That's not enforced at all. In other words, they confessed their crime, and we're talking about millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that hasn't been budgeted. It goes on right now. Right now. We still have the fraud by Mr. Parrish. We still have the fraud by Eddie Galindo. We have new fraud from a new sustainability manager. I don't remember her name, Ellie Galileo or something like that. This is horrible. And we let it continue. Millions, millions, millions of dollars. It's false. It's a false report to FDEP. So today I've asked you several times, I said, who can I report this fraud to? Because obviously when it's reported to the city of Titusville, it gets ignored and disposed of, dishonestly. It's not funny. It's not funny at all. So here we have in a democracy in which we hope for truth and justice and so forth, and we don't get it. We get lies. We got lies. Mr. Parrish is a liar, a cheat, and a fraudster. So is Eddie Galindo on this issue. So is some other people.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Please do something. Thank you.
Shortly after the ex-Water Resources Director quit, right after being pushed on public records about water tests, some false allegations were made about a nonprofit owner, executive director, Ms. Bailey. You all are aware of it. I know that you're going to pretend that you weren't, but they turned out to be very false accusations. It was a strange thing that happened. Why would he do that? Why? Why would he want to discredit somebody who'd worked so hard in our community to bring such good information to our people? Learning that there was 176 parts per trillion PFAS in my drinking water was a pretty substantial revelation for me and my family. I don't want to drink poison. I don't think any of you do. Then Stan Johnston gets a water sample at a park and gets charged with like felony terrorism or something. It's absolutely ridiculous charges for somebody that was simply getting a water sample from the park. Some of you celebrated that when he was arrested, held for 3 days, and denied his medication. Then Vicki Conklin runs for mayor. Woman who had a stellar career as a hospice nurse. Mr. Earl Johnston was her campaign manager. He was helping her out. And Mr. Connors decides to put up fake signs in the middle of the night, hiding under a bush, trying to discredit her, claim she was something she wasn't, whatever it was. They were illegal signs. They ended up with charges against them. Now, in all 4 of these cases, those accusations were dropped or dismissed. None of them had any founding whatsoever. Do you wonder why? Do you wonder why? Because what I think is that all 4 of those people had one thing in common, and that was the right to clean water. Our constitutional right as people here, as voters, as taxpayers, was denied. We got it on the ballot, we passed it, and you guys spent, I don't even know how much money. I'm sure Ms. Schifolo probably can tell me that number. How much money was spent on this attorney and that attorney trying to fight the citizens? And every step of the way, and the whole reason that I'm even coming here repeatedly is that everything you do seems anti-citizen. I don't know what the answers are all the time, but I do know that when you try to shut the public down, and when you pretend that facts are lies, and when you just ignore and put blinders on, and you say things like, we all do unethical things and we should investigate ourselves, you guys are looking in the wrong direction for answers.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. All right, seeing no more petitions and requests, I'm going to close that item. Member Nelson, you have the floor.
I want to clarify something. Stan was not arrested for getting a water sample. He was arrested for trespassing on a construction site. The construction supervisor told him not to return. He did. And the case wasn't dismissed. He went through a diversion program.
Member Nelson has the floor. Please return to your seat.
I wasn't addressed?
You were not. We're moving on.
Interesting. Everybody else saw her address me, correct?
She was talking out. I closed petitions and requests. Thank you. City manager?
So moving on to consent agenda. We have 8 items on the consent agenda. Any member of council wish to pull any of those items for further discussion?
Member Nelson?
I'd like to pull E
8E.
and get some further information. It just wasn't really clear in the package.
Member Moscoso?
I'd like to pull 8G.
All right, cool. So only 2 items to be pulled. So now we're on consent items A, B, C, D, F, and G. City manager?
Yes, sir. Consent agenda item 8A, Clean Vessel Act Grant CV 006. 8B, fiscal year FY 2025 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. 8C, the 2026 Red, White, and Boom July 4th celebration. 8D, America 250 Semi-Quincentennial Parade and Event. 8F, the Titusville City Hall chiller replacement, duct cleaning and encapsulation. And 8H, purchase of dock access website ADA compliant software through Civic Plus.
All right, you just read H. I heard that one, but we're on A, B, C, D, F, G, correct?
A, B, C, D, F,
G.
H.
F, H. My bad. I thought I circled H.
So we pulled 8E and HG.
Oh, G. Got it. Thank you. City clerk, can you call any cards?
Yes, sir. One individual has submitted a card on several of the consent agenda items if that information is needed. Altogether, it's 8B, E, G, and H, which I understand partly pulled.
Is that Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir, and Stan Johnston.
Mr. Johnson, you have the floor.
I'm trying to clarify what I have is that the E and G were pulled, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I get to speak on the B and H, and then I can speak also on 8E and 8G. That will give me 3 times 3 is 9 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, very good. All right, so I'll start with 8B. Well, that's fraud. I've talked to this about fraud, and I've read my position, and it's internal audit, and I've given information to the auditor that was here, and he's not here. He left. He's not here. We can't talk to him. And we're talking about millions and millions of dollars, and he's not here. He's not here for this agenda item. I don't know how that happened. I mean, I can't ask him questions. I can ask you guys questions about it, but I can't ask him because, I don't know, maybe he was in a hurry, or maybe you don't pay him enough. But the thing is what I did, I gave him questions and an email about the city's fraud. That's what I did to him. So I'm talking about, right now, I'm talking about 8B, is that, my goodness, what you guys have done is you've set up something. Here's what you set up. You've set up a meeting where you have presentations, no public input, which I've already complained about that at the last meeting. That's what you did. And so we're supposed to discuss this, but the guy's not here. What is this going on? What kind of nonsense is this? And you did it also for the people who were doing the stormwater system. I had all kinds of questions. I'm sure Mike Majak, I had questions, and other people too. We're not allowed to ask questions to the person who's here making the presentation. We don't have input. By the way, on that is the situation is that I talked to Mr. Majak after the guy left, and the lady also. I said, we have an estuary that's in big trouble, big trouble. It's not flourishing. It's not even an estuary anymore. It's just a polluted, almost dead zone, except for the grass is starting to grow. It's horrible. It's horrible. We used to have fireflies out there at the Merritt Island. Lots of fireflies. Where are they now? A lot of things are just dead. They're dead. There's a lot of things here that are in the river that are dead. They're not there anymore. I can't find hermit crabs. I don't think I can find any seahorses anymore. I don't think I can find even the brittle starfish. Because you guys hold back and will not test for poisons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. City Clerk, are there any other cards on any of those items?
No, sir.
All right. Any discussion from this board? Member Nelson?
By the way, Laura Lee and I found a seahorse last summer. Good. So I can make a motion, though.
Yeah.
Move to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, D, F, and H.
Second.
A motion by Member Nelson, second by Vice Mayor Cole. Any further discussion? City Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Member Moscoso,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Connors,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cole,
Yes.
Member Stokel.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. On to 8E. City Manager?
Yes, sir. That is to approve resolution number 6-2026 for the updated travel reimbursement administrative policy 1-1, which is included in your agenda packet.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, are there any cards?
Yes, sir. One card, Stan Johnston.
My name is Stan Johnson. I've objected for some of the traveling that has been done. And some of you were surprised when I disapproved of you going to Tallahassee and partying there, especially all the problems we have at the city, because what you need to be doing is something else. You need to be responding to the questions that we ask. You need to respond to the millions of dollars that I have repeatedly talked to you about the city is not budgeting properly. It's fraud. It's fraud what you're doing. You have no business making all these trips around and having parties. I think it's not bad. It's horrible what you're doing. You're cooperating with fraud. When you don't respond to these issues that I bring to you on emails and bring to you on council, you're a fraud. You're liars and cheats. The four of you right here, you're in the same group as Mr. Parrish. Liars and cheats about what's going on here. It's disgusting. You're just disgusting. And I'm not pleased with what you're doing. And on this particular one, travel and reimbursement, I'm against you guys doing anything outside of the city. You need to work here. You're getting paid to do it, and you're not doing your job. Excuse me, I'm not talking about this blonde girl.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. City Clerk, are there any other cards? Member Nelson?
Tom, could you tell us what changes were made in the travel policy?
Yes, ma'am. There are basically three changes. One, we relaxed the requirement to adhere to the GSA lodging rate if the hotel in which a conference is being conducted is the host hotel, then it makes sense for networking as long as it's not unreasonable if it exceeds the GSA rate, and that would be approved by this city manager. Also, we raised the threshold from $500 to $1,000 for council approval for travel. Nowadays, if you go to a conference more than 1 or 2 days, you're going to easily exceed $1,000 travel. And also, for transparency, we included the city manager and the city attorney. If we should travel to go to conferences and exceed $1,000, it would have to be approved by city council. Those are the three. And the requirement is by ordinance that the travel policy is approved by the city council, not by the city manager.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'd move to approve consent agenda item 8E.
Second.
Motion by Member Nelson, second by Vice Mayor Cole. Any further discussion? City Attorney, did you have something to add?
Oh, I'm just anticipating G.
Okay. City Clerk?
Yes, Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Connors,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cole,
Yes.
Member Stokel,
Yes.
Member Moscoso.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. City Manager?
And so moving on to 8G is the repealing Resolution 24-1997 and establishing revised quasi-judicial procedures in Resolution 07-2026. And I'll defer to the city attorney to explain that item.
Are there any, you pulled it, Councilmember Moscoso, do you have questions regarding the
Yeah, I do.
revisions?
Would you mind just going through and explaining it a little bit? How is it different than possibly what we had before?
Well, it has been condensed and to be more concise and clear for not only staff, but also for board members, council members, as well as P&Z administrative boards that quasi-judicial hearings come before. The original resolution was in 1997. It was, in the city attorney's office opinion, very lengthy and cumbersome. It was 11 pages. We've condensed it to 6 pages of relevant and updated information as the law has changed and as we believe is relevant to the quasi-judicial hearings that's before the council and boards.
And previously, was there the party intervener as well, or is that a new addition?
That's a new addition based on that party interveners can be a part of quasi-judicial hearing if they want.
For the public, would you explain what that is?
That's if a third party, apart from the applicant and the city, who are usually the parties in a quasi-judicial hearing, if a third party who may be affected regarding the application or their properties affected, of course, there's a legal standard. They can intervene once given notice to the city, and I believe based on the resolution, it's to the Community Development Department.
Thank you. The one part that I would like to clean up a little bit, it doesn't say who will determine if that person can be a party intervener. I feel like it's very broad. It might say the board, but I think I would love for it to say the city attorney would be the one to be able to judge if that person meets the standards to be a party intervener. And I'm just saying that based off of some other issues we've had in the city where, with our BAA, one of the members of the city was not able to present. They said that, her property wasn't close enough. And so I want to make sure that we have that locked down on who is the person that actually will verify and say this person is qualified to be a party intervener.
Well, the resolution in of itself defines what a party intervener is as well as an affected person. The party intervener means an affected person who has filed a notice of intent to participate. It also goes back to 2.2 that defines what an affected person is, or who an affected person is.
But who determines?
Who means, the definition in the reso says in 2.2, affected person means a person or persons, natural or corporate, who is the owner of the subject property, who owns property abutting real property that is the subject of the proposed change. So it defines a party intervener by using 2.2 as well as 2.7.
So who determines, say someone says, I'm a party intervener, and then?
So they would file based on the reso, they would file the notice of intent to participate, and then the Community Development Department will see if they meet the definition in the resolution, which is 2.2, affected person means, and it defines what.
So it's the Community Development Department. I would like to add that it would be the city attorney would be the one to determine that.
I wouldn't necessarily have an objection if that's what council wants to change the reso to determine. Again, it's not going to be a subjective determination, understand?
Yeah, and I'm not asking for it to be subjective, just to look over it and say, yes, you are qualified, or no, you aren't. I think it would just clear up possibly any gray areas if it's coming from the city attorney.
Member Nelson?
If that's what council desires.
I wouldn't have a problem with city attorney doing it. Normally, the tribunal, which would be us or the board, would make that decision of whether, it's not a de novo decision, it's do you meet this criteria? So I guess my question is, do you feel comfortable doing it, or would you feel more comfortable with the board doing it?
I believe someone outside the board would have to do it because it needs to be noticed in time to be able to appear for the quasi-judicial hearing before the board. So that would be my recommendation. Again, it's not a subjective standard. It would be determined by the definitions outlined in the reso, whether the board wants the city attorney to do it or the community development, who I know Brad would be happy if the city attorney's office does it. Honestly, at this point, I don't have an issue.
I'd prefer the city attorney.
Well, before y'all get into motions made, is that the only kind of tweak we're looking at? I believe there's a card on this item, so I want to make sure I get to that. City Clerk?
Yes, one card, Stan Johnston.
I'd like you to listen this time to what I have to say, and the people here in the audience also. Here's what's going on. I'm a professional engineer, and the city of Titusville is doing some things that are horrible, horrible crimes that are committed. For example, the dams that were constructed in the city of Titusville, all of them are illegal. They don't have compensatory storage. They didn't do the survey to show what lands they flood. They don't show the change in the wetlands. They're all taking a property, and you guys, the four of you, made an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Mr. Johnson, please.
14th Amendment, this has very much to do with what quasi-judicial. My testimony in this area on quasi-judicial hearings. So what's going on is these violations, and this is a violation of your oath of office, 14th Amendment of the Constitution, taking property without due process of law. It's a big deal. And I think that I should be able to talk when it's not my house affected or when it's not my property affected, although my property is affected in this case. And many people's are affected. And you guys ignore the law and you break the law. You break the Constitution. So I do not want this to be selectively find out that I have to post 3 days ahead of time, something like that, about being able to speak on quasi-judicial items. As a professional engineer licensed by the state, I should be allowed to speak on violations of law by the city of Titusville. But you don't want me to speak on violations of laws because you guys, what you do, instead of obeying, you cover them up. And that's what's been going on for many, many, many years. It's disgusting. And I'm trying to find out who I can contact
Mr. Johnson, you're
to
not
do
on
this.
topic. We're talking about the rules of quasi-judicial.
Exactly. In other words, that's whether I'm allowed to participate or not, and you should be. You should be listening to what's going on.
All right, Mr. Johnson, please have a seat. You're not on
Why?
topic. You're not on topic. Please have a seat.
Oh, I'm on topic, very much so.
No, you're not.
Very much,
Please have a
very
seat.
much so on topic.
Mr. Johnson, please
So
have a
how
seat.
can I be on topic when I'm talking
Please have
about
a
my ability
Mr.
to
Johnson.
talk at quasi-judicial hearings?
That's not what you were talking about. Thank you. Have a seat.
That's what we are talking about. That's what.
Please
That's
have a
what it is.
seat.
So, okay, I'm going to ask
Thank
my
you.
attorney to see if
Okay.
we can
That's
do this
fine. Go
because
ahead, have a
you
seat.
repeatedly break the
Mr.
Constitution,
Johnson.
including freedom of speech. I'm sitting down as
Ask
you
you to
directed,
leave.
under duress. Thank you.
Member Stokel.
Yes. To clarify with the 2.2, when it says who owns property abutting, how do we define abutting? Is that within 500 feet of the proposed item becoming before us, or how do we determine that?
I specifically did not put an amount
Okay.
measurement because again, it's, abutting, adjacent to the property in question. So there is no number limitation.
Okay, and I'm just thinking about, for instance, when we had the Apollo Gardens, where member Moscoso used to live, would she have been able to file as an intervener under this, potentially because she lived on the street that was close to the proposal?
Well, again.
Or would she have to be like right next
I
door
think
to it?
abutting, given the definition, the regular definition is adjacent, next to is that definition. Again, this does not preclude anyone from speaking on quasi-judicial as public comments. This is an added step to someone whose abutting properties in question can intervene as a party intervener.
And
have
then-
some more rights than just regular public comments.
Okay, I guess, so in another example, I guess, would be with this Royal Oak proposed development, the Gemini Lakes, would a person that potentially lived in the community but wasn't directly right on the golf course, but they lived across the street, would that count as abutting, or?
I think, again, we would just have to go to
okay.
the definition of Webster unless we want to define more or expand more abutting, but abutting is usually adjacent next to is the definition.
Okay.
I don't think we want to have it as open to anyone within in the vicinity, or that the case law restricts or limits the, an amount of distance, but abutting is usually next to adjacent, giving that person a little bit more of an interest in the property that's before the council that's in question for the amendment.
Okay, and then on page 119, under the hearing procedure, is there a reason that that particular at the bottom was underlined?
No,
The
that's
5
just what's going to be spoken, stated on the record.
Okay,
That's the quasi-judicial proceedings that will just be stating. There's not a particular reason why it was underlined, other
Okay.
than to emphasize this needs to be put on the record
Gotcha.
by you, probably myself, or maybe the city clerk at some point.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Member Moscoso?
Yes, I'm just going to piggyback on that abutting. I know it seems like very trivial, but what I don't want to see is a developer and then a resident come up and then both say, one say, yes, my definition is I'm abutting, and the definition for the developer saying you're not abutting. And
Well,
so that's why I wanted to make sure that it comes to you, but I would like to know and put that in exactly what that means according to your definition, so that it's clear on both sides.
And I can add a definition to the resolution and bring it back before council.
Thank you. I know it seems trivial, but I think it will just help us in the future. Mhm. So can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't done a motion in a while. You're always doing them.
Motion to table it to the next meeting.
Are we tabling it so that we can get that definition?
Definition add.
That would not be the appropriate motion. Because we table, it means we pick it back up later in the night.
If you folks want to postpone approving the reso for another hearing, directing me to define abutting, changing community development department to city attorney, that's fine.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So there's a motion by Member Moscoso to postpone this item till another meeting in the future. I'm sure you're going to want to leave it open-ended, right, to whenever they bring it back?
Do you want to give a time certain as far as when you want me to bring this before council?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, our next meeting, I'm going to guess, is the 14th. Could you bring it back then? Okay,
Sure.
thank you. Okay, until the 14th of April. Thank you.
May I inquire if the council would want it on the consent, or you want to take it off consent at this point?
I'm fine with it being on consent because we've discussed it.
I am too.
All right, so there's a motion by Member Moscoso,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor Cole. I want to say all those in favor, but I know it's a reso, but we're not, that's not the motion on the table, so it's tricking my brain.
Right, it's a
All those in
motion.
favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The matter is postponed. Thank you very much. City Manager?
Yes, sir. There are no items under ordinances second reading. Move on to item 10, ordinances first reading. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, 10A, the live local ordinance, was pulled by staff. So we'll move on to 10B, which is a rezoning application number 8-2025 for 317 Oleander Place. And this is the first reading of ordinance number 7-2026. And Mr. Parrish will read the ordinance.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 5-1993 of the City of Titusville, Florida, by amending the zoning map made a part of said ordinance by reference by changing the zoning district on property located at 317 Oleander Place from the Indian River City Neighborhood Commercial IRCNC zoning district to the Indian River City Neighborhood Residential IRCNR zoning district on .18 plus or minus acres of property, having a parcel ID of 22-35-22-3-03-10-5, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, incorporation into code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. City Clerk, are there any cards?
Yes, sir. 2 cards versus Stan Johnston.
Mayor, if I may,
City Attorney.
this is a quasi-judicial item, so I would just want to read the quasi-judicial proceedings instructions on the record.
Thank you.
During the public hearing portion of the meeting, anyone wishing to speak on a quasi-judicial item must complete and sign a speaker card along with the corresponding oath. The cards are located on the table in chambers. City staff will make the initial presentation, followed by the applicant's presentation, and then the hearing will be open for public comments. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if desired. Witnesses may be cross-examined, and all photographs, sketches, or documents for the hearing must be submitted to the city clerk and will be retained by the city. I don't know if that there's going to be an applicant or a presentation, but just reading the quasi-judicial proceedings for the record.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Johnson.
My name is Stan Johnson. I'm a professional engineer and also have a license in land surveying. I pass.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. City Clerk.
Keith Edwards.
Keith Edwards, Titusville. You guys, you got to be very careful with this planning and zoning. I mean, we've got an inner structure that's failing. We're below grade on that. We're trying to seek solutions to what we have. We've got to be able to think ahead of the program, such as BT Weldon, for an example. A great company and everything. But when they bring in their steel loads, right, they take up a one-way street with a no passing zone right in front of a traffic light. So, you know, I caution you, I'm making this short and sweet, but we really have to be serious about how we're going to plan the future and where we're going with it and how we develop. That'll be all.
Thank you very much. Any other cards? All right. I do believe this is the first reading, correct? So not seeing any other lights from council. Moving on. City Manager.
Sir, moving on to 11, old business. We have one item, 11A, which is the proposed updated council chamber meeting guidelines. And again, that was drafted by our city attorney.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, are there any cards?
Yes, sir. 2 cards. First is Tony Shipolo.
For 2418, the rules for decorum, council chamber guidelines. Number 10 was just simply the use of profane and obscene language wouldn't be allowed. 72220, the version introduced a 10-minute total time limit for the consent agenda. People could speak 10 minutes total on that. And before, they could only speak 3 minutes on each item. 32323, they reduced the consent agenda speaking time to 3 minutes total. 92523, we strengthened section 10 on decorum. It went from being just no profane signs to a whole big long paragraph, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then on this new version now, we're seeing the most changes. And the reason why these changes have come about, it seems to me, as a citizen who's been participating in council meetings, is to keep things from becoming a circus. Therefore, one of the new things that you're putting in here, and a lot of this stuff I'd like to say just ad lib, that it's pretty much directed at one citizen who gets up here and speaks all the time, a lot of it. And what I want to address is the material now about Number 8, Section 8, placards or signs are only permitted in the back of the room. And sometimes y'all get that wrong because they are allowed, it says, unless utilized during a speaker's public comment period. I'm making a public comment, and so therefore oh, but my goodness, the signs, when a speaker is speaking on a particular item, any sign or placard displayed must be related to that item, and they can only be 18 inches by 24. I had to put together 4 pieces of paper to make 18 by 24, but that's this size, and a poster board is like this size. It's 28 by 22, and I'm wondering, would y'all make me cut my signs up to get it down to this size? I don't know that circus would fit. 18 by 24. I think that's a very silly thing to try and limit the size of the signs. And I'm going to be around another couple of years watching to see
Thank
what
you,
y'all
Ms.
do.
Shiflow. City Clerk?
Stan Johnston.
Don't we need to, Stan Johnson, don't we need to applaud for that, what Vanna White did? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I even brought a sign here too, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be held to sit down or not, because it seems in the past I have been, and now maybe I'm holding it up and I'm not being told to sit down. So it seems to be it's inconsistent. What's going on is that I was repeatedly told to sit down, and this is a serious issue. This is our Constitution, freedom of speech issue, and you're taking it very lightly, except for Mrs. Moscoso, okay? Better than saying the blonde, okay? And I would think that Mr. Cole, who's a veteran, would take special notice of this, because we have freedoms that they don't have other places, like in the Soviet Union, in Mexico, and many other places. We're supposed to have these freedoms, but we don't have it in Titusville. We don't have it in Titusville. In other words, I've been told repeatedly, I cannot do a presentation and with a sign, because my presentation is not considered a presentation. So I talked to my attorney, and he's disappointed. I talked to Jolynn, Dan Hoffman about what she wrote. In other words, when I was removed from freedom of speech, she wrote about a sentence and a half, something like that, about what happened, where we had presentations and arguments by Mr. Connors about sit down, and all this kind of stuff. And yet, I even asked our city clerks to go ahead at that time and be sure to put it in the meeting minutes. And they were for certain, instead of being sure it's not there, they were sure that it's not in there. So we have, in our corruption, I want to say that's corrupt by our city clerk's office too, because they're working with you to take away our freedom of speech. I don't like what you're doing. It's ugly, and it will not be printed in the floor today. They will not print anything. They will not print anything against the city of Titusville. You can break all kinds of laws. You can spray all kinds of people with sewage, piss and poop, and you can get away with it, because it will not be in our free press. Or maybe there might be some other free press, Brevard News perhaps. But other than that, is that what we have, if we have a stinking, rotten government in Titusville by 4 members of our council who are liars, cheats, and fraudsters. Any questions?
Any other cards, City Clerk? Any other cards? All right. Council, any discussion? City Attorney?
Oh,
Oh,
no, I was waiting for.
I saw your light go on. Member Nelson?
I do have one thing that I wanted to bring up. One of the questions was who determines initially if something is relevant or not. And in my mind, I think it should be clear that the mayor makes an initial determination, or whoever is running the meeting. And if the rest of us disagree, that it becomes a vote for the board, just to make it clear. I will say, I was one that brought this up because I wanted all our rules on one page as opposed to having to go search 10 different years to try to figure out where all the rules were. So I appreciate that you did this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Nelson. City Attorney?
Thank you. No, I believe the history which is attached to my report has been that for the past year, council has directed, prior to me being here, staff and/or the city attorney's office to make some changes or updates to the guidelines. Specifically, I think what has been at issue is the signage, albeit whether it's a circus or decorum or order. However, I think since I've been here the past 5 months, there's been a back and forth as far as whether signs can be used, and the issue was whether it's presentation versus public comment. So the city attorney's office wanted to make it a little bit clear by amending or updating number 8, saying that balanced with First Amendment rights, understandably, but still wanting to maintain some decorum and order for our council meetings, which we're within our right to do, balanced again with First Amendment rights. So we made these suggestions that during public comments, signs can be used, restricting the signs not to be billboard-like signs at the podium, but instead be placed at the back of the room. So that was kind of our suggestion in amending these rules.
I think it's a good compromise. One of my problems has always been people get these signs and they're up at the podium. I'm trying to pay attention to the speaker. I have somebody waving signs around. One night we had somebody taking their sign and basically doing this to somebody who was trying to speak. And it became a circus where I wasn't paying attention to the speaker. I was paying attention to the signs, and that drove me crazy. So it's not that I don't mind, I mind signs. I guess it's the behavior with it. So I think that's a good compromise by turning around and restricting the size of the sign. And then if people act otherwise, then we address that.
In addition, not only the size of the sign, but also that it has to be related to the topic, because again, we still want some order and decorum in spite of what just occurred. We still want some decorum and order in our council meeting, so that everyone's, able to say what they want to say, but also be respectful of other people in the audience.
Member Moscoso?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So if residents, are they allowed to hold signs if they're not speaking?
I believe based on the guidelines, the signs can be placed at the back of the council chambers. If you're doing public speaking, you can have a sign as long as it's on topic as to the item you're speaking on, whether it's an item on the agenda or it's at petitions request.
But if you're not presenting, like I've seen, not necessarily here, but I've seen in other council meetings, if there's a group that's against a rezone, they'll hold up like a no rezone sign. Would that be prohibited?
Currently, under your guidelines that has been in place prior to the amendments being made here, no. That's signs being held up while sitting in the audience is not provided for here. The signs can be placed in the
So those are
back.
not permitted?
Correct, except for if you're doing public comments at the podium. But if you have a sign, you, again, just like the sign we're looking at here, you can place it at the back of the chambers per the guidelines that are in place. Now, council can change the guidelines. These are your guidelines if you want. These are just recommendation based on, again, council going back and forth as it pertains to signs being used during presentation, public comments at the podium.
Sorry, we had, in one of our BAA meetings, we had someone hold up a sign, sitting down, holding up a little sign, and they were removed from the chamber.
I can't speak as to that, but again, if someone's sitting down and holding up a sign, you have to be cognizant. Is there someone behind them that can't see? Again, you know, council, it's at your preference what you want, but you know, those are just things that you have to think about. If someone's sitting down and holding up a sign, are they blocking someone that's behind them?
Yeah, I'm personally okay if someone's sitting with a sign. It doesn't bother me. I'm fine with the restrictions of the size of the sign when you come up, but if someone wants to hold a little sign, that I'm okay with it, as long as it's not distracting or blocking someone's view.
As somebody who has to enforce all these rules, by the way, I think it's just important that we have clear rules, clear expectations, and everybody knows what their role is and what you're allowed or not allowed to do. And to Member Nelson's point, over the years, it's kind of been a hodgepodge of this different resolution or this different thing, and things that conflict with, you know, the ordinances. So I'm glad that, you know, we went through and hopefully put together a nice list that we can all agree on so that we can conduct business in these chambers. So I'll entertain a motion to approve if anybody's done with discussion. Member Nelson.
I would move to approve the updated council chamber meeting guidelines.
Second.
I have a motion by Member Nelson, second by Vice Mayor Cole. Discussion. Member Moscoso?
Would you be open to a friendly amendment of allowing small signs?
I thought about it, and I don't think so. And I think the problem is not that the small signs are a problem, but the enforcement. It's like, how do you, I mean, we're asking these guys to enforce our guidelines now. And I think we would just be making it more complicated. So say the no rezone will allow T-shirts, I have no problem with that. But the actually having the signs, I sort of have a problem with.
That's fair.
All righty. So no further discussion. City Clerk, can you call the roll?
Excuse me, Mayor. I'm sorry. May I make the clarification? Councilmember Nelson, are you making the motion including the mayor makes a determination regarding the related what?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes.
All right, so Member Nelson adapted her motion to include that the mayor gets to determine whether the sign is on topic. Vice Mayor Cole, does your second still stand?
Yes.
Any further discussion? City Clerk?
Yes, and thank you for clarifying. Mayor Connors,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cole,
Yes.
Member Stokel,
Yes.
Member Moscoso,
No.
and Member Nelson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. City Manager?
Yes, sir. There are no items under new business, so we move on to item 13, second round of petitions.
All right, petitions and requests from the public present. Non-agenda items. Seeing, I think everybody already spoke the first time around, so I'm not seeing any last call. All right, moving on. Council reports. Member Moscoso, do you have anything? Member Nelson?
No.
All right. Member Stokel? No. Vice Mayor Cole?
No.
All right. So I'm sorry, guys, I have a few things I'd like to bring up with you guys. And the first one I did put on my report, it's our zoning district titled Planned Industrial Development. And if you look at where our PID zones are located, they're out by the airport, which is FAA certified spaceport. That's where you would see industrial development. And I think we're having some challenges with that because of what we're missing. And I think when you live in an economy that is space related, it's hard to predict what research and development and the space industry is going to go. And part of the intent of the PID zoning district, it was to induce aerospace manufacturing. However, it doesn't permit manufacturing. Because if you're not allowed to do welding, that kind of comes into it, or manufacturing, that makes it a little tough. And the PID zoning district is a planned industrial development. How can you not allow industry in a planned industrial development? And while I get it's hard to kind of predict where these things are going, I just think it would be important for us to have the conversation of what all should fall into that bucket, as we kind of uncovered during my last report that we didn't allow indoor recreation in our city, which is kind of an issue. I want to make sure that we're not setting us up for failure. If everybody believes that economic development and aerospace business, commercial enterprise should come to our airport area, we should look at what does that look like. And I think an avenue of opportunity that we're missing in the industrial permitted zoning district is aerospace and defense related manufacturing, because when you get a company that's coming here looking at, building a rocket, I think there's a lot of things that are encompassed in building a rocket. You can't just put it in a box and say it's manufacturing. They do welding. They might mix some epoxies or chemicals to refurbish satellites. Like, all these things come into play. And I feel bad for Brad and his team who have to go, well, I don't know, what box do you fit in? So if you look at the usage table under planned industrial development and kind of scroll down to industrial, I think there's some things missing that I would like your guys' support to ask our staff to look at. And like I said, aerospace and defense related manufacturing means fabrication, assembly, processing, repair, testing, integration of aircraft, spacecraft, satellites, rockets, unmanned aerial vehicles, defense systems, or related components. And when you think about it, with this whole idea of R&D, it's research, so it's new. Of course we wouldn't have a code for it. So how do we put a box into that? Or how do we put that company into a box? And so that's where I think, as we look and try to plan what does 20 years out look for us, it's important that we have a conversation as to what a planned development looks like from an industry base. Member Stokel?
So is your request for advisability, is that what you're looking for?
I mean, yeah, I think we could solve it pretty easily by adding some categories, because if you look at the types of industries, I mean, a lot of them I think are older in nature. It doesn't have anything about aerospace or defense or research and development. It just a lot of maybe older industries that don't, we're not obviously looking to attract here.
Okay, thank you.
It really makes sense because those are the types of industries that are coming in. And I totally agree with you. If industry is coming in to make rockets or whatever they're going to make, obviously welding and manufacturing is included. And if it's not in that, then we need to work it so it can be in that, because we may be restricting commercial industries for coming in here to Titusville.
Thank you. Member Nelson.
There's that complex that's on US 1, just as you get into Port St. John. And they were doing welding in there. There was a space-related industry. I want to say they were doing satellites. How do they get around this kind of thing?
Are you talking about the Titusville Logistics Center?
Yes, thank you.
And, yeah, I'm not really familiar with what they're doing in there.
I was hoping Mr. Parrish had an answer for us.
I know
I'll have to look to see what the zoning is on the property to see how it was permitted.
Okay.
Yeah, because they could be M1, M2, M3, but the planned industrial development is planned
Is
industrial, and we don't allow industrial.
I thought that was.
I don't know.
So I don't have any problem with it. It's probably a good idea to look at it and update it.
The property you're asking about is zoned heavy industrial manufacturing.
Okay.
So it's not a PID zoning.
Okay.
The PID is primarily located at the Vector Space development, which is that property on the southeast corner of 405 and South Washington. PID is also the area where the police department is located and everything south of them.
So that PID area is pretty much the airport, right?
The airport has a different zoning itself, but the area that in question is, there's a large area just between 407 and Grissom Parkway, south of 405. You probably have the land use maps in front of you. You can see that purple area in the southwest part of the city.
Well, the airport's zone public, but it has a space overlay. So,
There's the trustee map. Yeah.
but anyways, I think we need to at least look at other definitions of what industrial is, especially out in that area, especially with research development. What does that look like? A lot of these companies are, taking something from nothing and turn it into something that doesn't quite fit in a box. So I want to make sure we're receptive so that we can have business coming into the city before it becomes an issue. Member Stokel,
Do you want to see if there's any cards, and then I'd be happy to make a motion?
is there any cards on my agenda item?
Yes, sir. Stan Johnston submits for this.
Stan Johnston, and it certainly is a special problem, and I thank Mr. Connors for bringing it up. I'm not sure what the solution is, but one of the things that when you do manufacturing, you use water oftentimes to clean things, and it's going down our sewers. You might not like me telling you this, but that's what's happening in some places where they are zoned, the PID, is that the sewers are being polluted with chemicals. So whatever you do, I don't know whether you should contact the sewage or sewage, so forth, because as far as I can see, is some of the manholes have been eroded because of the caustic materials that have been put in our sanitary sewer, which are illegal. So I'm asking you to think about what's going on and ask what's going on, because our putting it in our St. Johns River, that just goes into somebody's house downstream. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, cards are called. Member Stokel?
Yep. Make a motion for staff or advisability for staff to look at our PID zoning and see what we can do to potentially make it more friendly for aerospace industry to be able to potentially do some development in that area.
Second.
I have a motion by Member Stokel, a second by Vice Mayor Cole. Any further discussion? City Clerk, call the roll, please.
Yes, may I also clarify the area? Are you describing like a boundary or in a general area?
I think it's just all planned industrial development.
All PID.
Of course, thank you for letting me clarify that. Our roll call, Vice Mayor Cole,
Yes.
Member Stokel,
Yes.
Member Moscoso,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Connors.
Yes. Thank you very much, Council. I appreciate you supporting me in that. Hopefully we can, like I said, make it a little easier. Also, I had a person come up to me over the weekend and said that, we do National Day of Prayer on City Hall steps every year. And it's a great community event where people come and we pray over our city. There's an organization that's trying to pray over all of Brevard. And so they're doing it at a park in Palm Bay, a park in Vieira, and they were looking to do it at a park in Titusville. So they would be there just kind of with the tent set up and allow people to come and pray at their leisure, or they would sit there and read the book of the Bible for that day. And they were looking for May 3rd through May 7th, culminating with National Day of Prayer. And apparently they're going through the county parks and recreation system and having a little bit of a challenge because this is not an organization. It's just a group of people that want to get together and pray. So I was asking council if we could allow them to do that in one of our parks without having to make them go through the rigmarole that encompasses putting on a public event like that. So I wanted to see what you guys thought of it. They were looking at, just setting up at Veterans Memorial Park and sitting there, and if anybody wants to come out and pray, let them pray.
Yeah, I don't see why they're having an issue to begin with. I feel like,
It's technically open to the public, so anytime you do that,
Right.
Parks and Rec's gonna make you do the insurance and all the other things that come with that.
okay, no,
So,
okay.
I mean, if they want to go to Veterans Park and pray, yeah.
I think they're trying to do the right thing and do it by the book and make sure they have the, official blessing.
Do we, Mr. Abate, do we need to do anything if they
Well,
want to go to a
If
park?
some type of an organized gathering, I think they would have to clear that with Parks and Rec.
Normally, it would be Parks and Rec, but what if it's a city park?
Well, the city parks are still maintained by Parks and Rec. Unless you
Okay.
want to clarify which park.
Yeah.
Veterans Memorial. It's a city park.
Would they have to go through special events?
Yep.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Member Moscoso?
Yeah, I mean, then I think you get into the territory of what if another organization asks for the same thing. I rent a lot of pavilions and things for our church, and so we just have to, we pay the fee, we rent it, people come. It's not a huge event, so I'm not sure exactly what the scope of this project is. I just think we have to be careful if another organization comes and says, we want to bypass this. If it's a small thing, I also don't see why they just don't set up and pray, but I don't know what they're planning and if they're advertising and things like that. Do you know how Palm Bay is handling it?
I'm assuming it's at one of their city parks. So they were a little off guard when they had to go through the county for use of one of our parks. And again, I apologize, this wasn't on my report. This got brought to my attention on Saturday. So, Member Stokel?
Sorry, did they say what their issue was with the county? Were they not approving it? Was it too lengthy? Was it too expensive? Or what was the main issue?
Costs are definitely a factor because any event open to the public, they charge you per how many people you think are coming. So even if it was $50, $100, I'm not exactly sure what that cost was gonna be. But then you also have to do the special event permit through the city. So there's just a lot of hoopla, and they don't have, again, as just a collection of residents, they don't have like an insurance to fall back on with their, because it's not like one particular church. If it was one particular church, I would say, yeah, you gotta do the things that you gotta do, but this is just a collection of residents that wanna do this. Member Stokel, are you done? Member Nelson?
I think Member Moscoso is right. I have rented the pavilions in the park and rented parks before. It is expensive, but it also, you have to provide insurance, which covers us, the city, if anything happens. And I don't see how we can shortcut that.
I just did what I said I was gonna do and bring it before the board.
Okay.
Because I can't wave a wand and give them access. Member Stokel?
And I guess, just to clarify, there's nothing preventing them from a group of people participating in one of our parks. Our parks are for people, so I just want to make that clear. So depending on what level they're doing, I think that we determined that if it's going to be a organized event, they would go through the process, but if they want to gather and pray, by all means, they can do that.
Thank you very much. That concludes my report. So with that being said, City Manager.
Yes, sir. Under City Manager Report, we have one action item, and that's, as you recall, past several meetings, there was a discussion as to the next phase of the strategic planning. We had the first phase, the community conversation, back in February, which was facilitated by Kristen Bakke. And instead of having a second follow-on session, the recommendation was perhaps do something different this year, maybe even some type of an off-site with City Council. And Mr. Cook explored several different options, and one of the options is listed as an attachment on the City Manager Report for your discussion and action as you see fit.
Thank you, City Manager. Kevin, do you want to give us an overview?
Sure. So after we did have a few phone calls with a couple of different consultants ranging in price from 40,000 down to this one, which is a full day for $4,000. This gentleman does a lot of planning with businesses and governments. If you take a look at his website, which is included, he has a pretty good plan for how to scope a one-day, 8-hour workshop for the council to work on the strategic plan, interactions, developing a 10-year vision, a 3-year picture, and a 1-year plan, and then trying to hone that into about 15 key action items to walk away with from that 8-hour day. I spoke with him today. He's really excited for the opportunity to do this for the city. This will be the first time we'd be looking at a full retreat for the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cook. Member Moscoso.
I'm going to guess this is open to the public as well. And are there like meeting minutes taken? Like how do we do this in the sunshine?
It has to be noticed and properly noticed and minutes taken. It falls within the sunshine.
And do we have a location for this?
If we move it forward, we'll find a location for you. So.
I mean, I personally I know the idea is to get off site, but I want to make sure that at least it's accessible if we are moving forward for the public to come. I think it's important because we are going to be having, I mean, these are discussions that affect the residents, and I think it's important to have their input. And maybe nobody shows up. I don't know, but I think we need to take that in consideration and not make it somewhere where people just don't have access to it.
Thank you. And I believe Vice Mayor Cole made the recommendation of doing a parish's conference room, which would be open and accessible to the constituents. Member Stokel?
Yes, because of sunshine, it definitely will be noticed and public will be invited. But I do want to clarify, the intent is, from my perspective and why I brought this forward, is I talked to fellow other council members just about their dynamics with their city councils, if they've done retreats, how does their strategic planning work? And I feel like this would be really beneficial for us because if you go out and you talk to different businesses, you talk to different organizations, they don't have sunshine and they are able to work through and sit down and brainstorm and have working meetings, which we don't really have that. We have sunshine. And so all of our work is primarily done here. It will still be noticed and public will still be invited, but my hope is that we will sit down and actually hash out some of these things and take a full day to go through and say, hey, you came up with this idea last year, why don't we explore that? I think in the past what's happened is we are given our 5 or 6 goals, we look through them, do we still like them? And we all like them, but we never get the opportunity to really kind of hone in and say, overall, speaking of our city and the citizens and the residents and our vision, like where do we want to see our city? How can we get there? What are those core values to each of us? And really have just more open discussion where we're not sitting all here with the microphone scattered. It will be more of an intimate, I would say, environment where we can just have dialogue going back and forth, not putting on your mic, can I be called on? It's just a real opportunity, I think, for us to have a good working meeting, which I think will hopefully be productive for us moving forward, because I think a lot of us on here have a lot of really good ideas and care what's right for the city, but there's a lot of other things that I feel like we need to work through and work past so we can actually start making some, I think, good changes for the city.
Thank you, Member Stokel. Member Nelson?
I like the idea because you're right. Before way back, 10 years ago, Sarah, Dan Diesel, and myself ran for office. And before the election, we were allowed to talk. And we exchanged ideas. And I'm sure Sarah still has ideas. I know I have ideas what I want to see the city look like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, and on. And so I would like to have the opportunity, not to have a printed agenda that I have to follow, but where we can sit down and talk about that. And we can't do it now like we used to, or we're able to do it at one point. And I think that would be great because that sort of gives us an idea as these things come up, where we want to go is this what we want to do? Is this going to get us where we want to be? Or are we taking this side road that's going to be a dead end? So that's sort of what I'm hoping comes out of it.
Thank you, Member Nelson. Any other discussion? All right. Seeing none. Member Nelson?
Did we need to pick a date? I think that's what we needed to do.
If the council decides to proceed with this proposal that was submitted, yeah, we would like to get a date so we could start logistics planning.
I think it was April 18th or April 25th.
I think I said I didn't care. Oh, for me, the 25th. Rotary has a car show on the 18th. I think I'm cooking hot dogs.
You said the 25th was not good?
25th is good. The 18th, I'm cooking hot dogs.
25th is not good for me.
Ooh.
Anybody have any other dates?
I think we have a funeral. What about? We're gonna have a funeral. What about May 2nd?
If I could help, the consultant doesn't have those dates available, so I can give you the dates he has.
Oh.
So he has the 22nd, the 24th, 27th, 28th, 29th available today. I think we uphold council for the availability for the 24th, which was a Friday.
Yeah.
I can't do Friday.
So Kevin, what other dates? What dates?
That's what I had for end of April. He has, I can get his May dates if we want to move forward and bring that back.
It's probably a good idea to get his May dates because I don't think we're finding any resolution up here.
Can you ask him about May 2nd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seemed to work for everyone. Okay.
All righty. City manager?
That concludes the action items. The other item I have is just information, monthly reports, budget reports.
Excuse me, Mayor Connor.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you did not take action on the last item, and staff is coming back. Did you want to hear from anybody with cards on that item?
Mr. Johnson, do you want to talk about dates?
Yeah, yes. I don't know if it's about dates, but about doing it at all. So is that going to be another come up later?
Yeah.
Okay, so later you'll have whether to have it and how it's done and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time I'll speak.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, city manager, does that conclude everything?
Sir.
All right, city attorney?
Yes, I have two informational items on my report. The first is to inform council that I will be attending, or I've registered for the Florida Bar Section City County Local Government's annual municipal conference, which will be next month. Actually, it'll be April 23rd through 25th. 3 days. This will be very beneficial to the city, as I've outlined in my report. It will help with CLE credits for my bar certification as well as board certification in local government matters. And again, prior to the resolution that was passed earlier, I didn't need any approval or reporting to council, but in an effort to be transparent, I wanted to put this on council's radar that I will be attending the seminar.
Thank you very much, city attorney.
The second item, which we have discussed previously today, is the informal mediation that was requested pursuant to Florida Statute 163.3181. The applicant, as we all know, has requested an informal mediation through their attorney. As indicated in the report, this is very informal. The statute is not clear as to the process and the procedure of this informal mediation. I have reached out to the applicant's counsel, who's I believe we'll try to discuss what the format will be, but it's very informal. There will be no agreement that's binding or in effect without coming before council, as you all know. But again, just so you know, the talks has been perhaps doing the informal mediation with a mediator, selected mediator. The city will split the cost per the statute. In addition, the applicant's attorney states she's not sure whether she'll want to have the mediation prior to the area study or after, but again, nothing is concrete. They are within their rights, as I've outlined in the report, under the statute. If they request it, the governing body needs to facilitate and must provide that opportunity for the informal mediation. So that's what I have so far. Just wanted to bring it to council's attention so that we're all on the same page, in addition to just having it publicly noticed, because I know, of course, we know that there are, citizens who are very active and wanting to be in the know regarding this matter.
Thank you, City Attorney. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Cards?
Yes, sir. 5 persons have submitted cards, and thank you for clarifying this earlier. Brian Yarnell.
Good evening. My name is Brian Yarnell, and I represent the Association of Fairways at Royal Oak, and that's why I'm here today. I'm also an attorney. Section 163.3181 at its very beginning says that the statute is to encourage public participation. And so with this informal mediation, which has no definition, because it doesn't say mediation, it says informal mediation or alternative dispute resolution. Now, it's important that it's not a judicial mediation. If it were a judicial mediation, it would be considered confidential. But it's not under Chapter 44 of the Florida statutes. As such, the question becomes, who can watch the mediation, even if you're not going to allow people to speak at the mediation? And in today's day and age, there's no reason you can't have a Zoom mediation and allow people to see what's being said and what's happening. And that will encourage public participation. And also, we believe that you can't have an informed mediation until you do the small-scale study, because how else are you going to determine the impacts and whether you can agree to what they're proposing? So I think that's 2 issues, and I think the city attorney has recognized that there is no process set forth in the statutes. It's another one of these statutes the legislature passes and doesn't bother to tell you how to do it. So it's up to the city to figure it out with the applicant, with in mind the very first sentence of Chapter 161.3181, 3181, yes, that says that the public has a right to participate. And Section 4 does not say that only the owner and only the local government may participate. It doesn't say that at all. It says the owner must participate and the local government must participate, but it doesn't say no one else may participate. And so my humble suggestion would be that when you get around to scheduling this mediation, that you allow the public to have a viewing participation, because I know that it would be impossible to have 500 voices at a mediation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. City Clerk?
Seth Adams.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I want to begin by thanking you for the time, the effort, and the careful consideration you've already given to the future of Royal Oak, the golf course property. Your unanimous decisions, both at planning and zoning here on council, didn't happen by accident. They reflect a clear, thoughtful conclusion about what is and what is not appropriate for this land. And that clarity matters. And I also want to respectfully speak directly to developers and whoever's connected to them tonight. What you're hearing from this community is not mixed, it's not unclear, it's not inconsistent. It is consistent, it is firm, and has now been reinforced multiple times through formal votes. This is not resistance to growth. It's not a response to a proposal that does not fit the character or infrastructure, the expectations of the people who live here. The residents surrounding this property are not abstract stakeholders. They are families, homeowners, taxpayers who have built their lives around the reasonable expectation that their community would be protected but through thoughtful planning, responsible decision-making. Concerns about density, traffic, environmental impact, and compatibility have been raised again and again. These concerns have not been answered in a way that builds confidence in that matters. To the developers, persistence is understandable, but at some point, persistence must give way to listening. When a community, its advisory board, and its elected officials all arrive at the same conclusion, the responsible path forward is not to push harder, it is to reconsider. And to the council, I want to emphasize something critically important. You are not obligated to rezone this property. You don't have to do this as a favor for these people. Rezoning is not a formality. It is not something that must be granted because it's requested. It's a legislative decision that should only be made when it clearly, unquestionably serves the best interests of this community as a whole. You've already spoken with, and with unity and conviction, standing by that decision is not only appropriate, is it essential for maintaining public trust. Changing course without a meaningful change in the proposal will send the wrong message to the residents who depend on you to safeguard their community. This is a moment where consistency matters. It's a moment where leadership matters. Titusville deserves development that fits, respects existing neighborhoods, and that enhances, not undermines, the quality of life for its residents. Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. City Clerk?
Vicki Conklin.
Vicki Conklin. I too would like to speak to the public participation in the proposed mediation under section 163.3181. If it's to move forward, we do encourage that citizens most directly impacted and affected by the project should not be shut out of the process. It does state very clearly that the public is to participate in the comprehensive planning process to the fullest extent possible, and it directs the local governments to provide effective public participation and notice to property owners whose local rights may be affected. It really matters here. As I mentioned to you, there's 540 dwelling units that are contiguous to the Royal Oak property. They are stakeholders. Maybe they don't own that golf course, but they're stakeholders and have significant impact. So it's a public process. We encourage you to be open with that public process. And if they're excluded, and these are substantive changes, then the public has to conclude that it looks like it's a behind doors deal and negotiations behind doors. So I think the public should be included in this process. Are they going to receive notice? Will the public receive little postcards and notice of when the mediation will occur? Will they be able to attend? Will they be able to participate? Are they just silent observers? What's the legal basis for not including them? That might be a question to think about. So we wanted to withstand public view, especially now with all of the questions regarding transparency. Don't let it appear that it's a backroom deal. Be transparent about it, include the residents. This is something that I haven't seen here before with this mediation. Maybe it's something you've done before, but it just seems really strange to us. It was a 5-0 denial of the application. It was unanimous. The mediation just seems really out of place. There is no court case. Yes, they're entitled to it with Chapter 163, but it just seems like there's more questions here than there's answers.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Kathleen O'Rourke.
Most things have already said, so hopefully I'll be brief. But I would like to support Mr. Yarnell's position that the citizens be able to, at a minimum, watch these proceedings. The statute does allow for the mediation, we know that, but it is a procedural step. It allows a conversation, but it does not erase the outcome of the public process, and it doesn't diminish your prior decision, and that's important to realize. Mediation's not a reversal, and it should not ever be a shortcut to approval. Any revised proposal should still meet the city standards, address the concerns that lead to denial, and return through the proper public process. That's really important. Until this happens, then, the council's unanimous decision remains the operative public action. Part of this decision was based on serious concerns about flooding, infrastructure, and long-term impacts in our city, and we don't want to forget that, because those concerns have not gone away. But what might have changed, and that's the concerning part, is if the discussion moves into a setting that's less visible. I think that's really risky. That makes transparency, in this case, more important, not less. I was really relieved to hear the city's commitment to finishing the small-scale studies before mediation decisions are made. I guess we can't stop the mediation from taking place before that's done, but it seems foolish. But I do think it's a general rule that you don't mediate first and then study later. It's just totally backwards. Okay, so I think that, you know, as everybody said, people are watching closely. We really care about the process. And, you know, it's, to my mind, being in Royal Oak, it seemed like rather an insulting thing that they did. But I can't affect that. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk.
Yes, sir. The last card, Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnson, and I'm not a neighbor of Royal Oak, but I'm a registered professional engineer. And what I have done is I have challenged the city repeatedly to get a professional engineer to dispute me. This is very important in this particular matter. And I brought it to some attention of the people who are here, is this publication. And this publication says that Mr. Moria is wrong, saying something like that, a number of things, but one thing that's been said is that the property owners or the golf course is responsible for the maintenance of the storm sewers and the other improvements for drainage. They are not. And I say this from expertise. Beginning in 1971, I worked for this company, L.A. Melvin and Associates, and nobody, I know of no project that was a subdivision that had public roads that I have that would have drainage dedicated to the any homeowners associations. We didn't even have homeowner associations. We had no homeowners associations being responsible for retention ponds for a long time. So this Royal Oak was Brevard County, not City of Titusville. It was part of, as far as I know, it was part of Brevard County. Even if it was part of city, it still follows is that the laws are, we didn't do it. We didn't have St. Johns River Water Management District when this was done. We didn't have it. We didn't have homeowners associations that did storm sewer and so forth. So I'm asking you, if you want to, is that you need to understand it's false for you guys to continue to say that Royal Oak homeowners or the golf course is responsible for replacement of metal pipes and so forth. You're wrong. And that's a big deal that you should understand. And I challenge you to get a professional engineer to dispute me. And that's a big deal. So give it some thought. And by the way, you know, there is a dam there. There is a dam there at 50. Okay? It's a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Member Nelson?
Ms. Treasurer. Question, do we have any case law regarding mediation, what the procedures are?
No, not under chapter 163.318. No, not under the cited Florida statute that's applicable here. There's another statute, 70.51, that provides for mediation when there's a development order or other small-scale amendment denial, and that's very specific. That outlines in details, including notice to the public, when that mediation. This simply provides for an informal mediation. Being an attorney yourself, you understand informal mediation is very loose. It does not provide for public notice at this point in time. It's a request by the applicant who's been denied. Honestly, I think it's a prerequisite or a condition precedent as any litigation, which they have to go through that process in order to file any further litigation, and the statute does provide for that as far as indicating the tolling time before filing a litigation if they request for an informal mediation. But again, our office did research as far as there is any case law out there that flushes out this statute, and we didn't find any to date. We'll continue to look. I'll continue to keep council apprised as we go forward, but please bear in mind that this seems to be a right given to the applicant that the governing body has to accommodate. In addition, it's a condition prereq before any lawsuit actions taken.
Okay, thanks.
Member Stokel?
Yes, that was along my lines, and it might help to clarify typically what happens in these or informal mediation meetings, because you can't make any decisions. Any decisions would have to come before council, so it might be good for the public just to know typically what happens in them. I know they can vary, and this would be your first one, I think, with us, but we have had them in the past.
Well, you have had a couple in the past that I've researched, but again, that's been under Florida Statute 70.51, which there have been development orders and small-scale amendments, which again, that statute is very detailed and specific. I can provide it to council just to give and I don't know if I did attach it or not, but I probably should have, just to give the comparison and as to how detailed that statute provides for, in addition to how this one is not as specific and basically gives the right to the applicant to request this informal mediation. Now, mediations, I've participated in hundreds of mediations. Mediations usually are restricted to the parties in question, not to the public. And again, it's confidential. There's a third-party mediator. But in this particular case, absolutely, there will be no binding agreement absent the ratification of council and approval of council. So I did indicate that to the applicant's attorney as to what they're looking for, what they're wanting, given it's a 5-0 vote and they know the climate of this issue. And so, again, I think it's just be mindful that this is a condition precedent to any lawsuit. So they have to go through this process or else they would probably not be able to file a lawsuit in the future.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Member Moscoso?
Just to clarify, is there anything that states that the public can't be there? I know perhaps we don't advertise it, but is there anything, and I think somebody brought up the point, if you could show us where it states the public cannot be there.
It's trying to prove a negative, which is impossible. So it does not say that, but it does not say the public. Again, I can only give the comparison of other statutes that provide for public notification. I can write a legal memo and provide to council as to my analysis, but it does not say they cannot. It does not say they can, in my opinion. What was cited by Mr. Yarnell is the generalization of public participation in comp plan amendments, which are public hearings of the sort, which we all know the public is noticed of that, not as to the informal mediation specified in this part of the statute.
And you also stated that they usually are restricted. Could you give examples of when they are not restricted?
I was talking about regular mediation as far as litigation, like if there's a personal injury or other mediations, not necessarily this particular mediation provision.
Okay.
If that makes sense. The restrictions, usually if there's like a negligence case or a regular lawsuit outside of land use, it's usually restricted to just parties who are involved in litigation.
I think I'm just not understanding, if it doesn't say that they can be there and it doesn't say that they can't be there, why are we erring on the side that they can't be there?
Because it doesn't provide that they can.
So then why are we saying then they can't?
Because the statute does not say they can. Again, I will provide a legal analysis as to why, in my opinion, based on, and I provided that in the report, it does say the property owner as well as the government body as the parties, it does not provide for public notification, it does not provide for notice. There are other statutes, like I've stated in 70.51, that provides for that and outlines that in detail. This statute is silent as to that.
Member Nelson?
Have we talked to other cities to see how they're handling these mediations?
The couple of attorneys I've spoken to outside of our extensive legal research on case law, they're not familiar with this particular statute. They're familiar with 70.51, again, that provides for regular mediation, not informal mediation as provided here. And that mediation statute goes into detail as to the process. A special magistrate, it goes into the process of notification and public notice, public participation, all of that.
It's good you're going to a conference.
Not sure if the conference will be on point, but that would be great if it does answer these questions.
That would be nice.
But I will continue to do research, and again, I will provide and provide any updates, as well as keep the council apprised of the matter.
All right, thank you very much. I'm assuming that concludes your report, Attorney Treasurer?
Yes.
All right. Member Nelson?
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.